Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to work out what parts we actually need for the stag. So I want to get the car jacked up in the air and I want to jet wash the underside of it. Then we can get a better idea of how bad the rust is underneath and it'll give us a better idea of what parts we actually need to order. But first we actually need to get it running properly to a good standard, so we're just cleaning out the plugs, which already look quite new actually. We're going to re-gap them, we're going to kick it over just to flush some oil around the engine to make sure the balls are nice and lubed up. And yeah, hopefully we can get it in the middle of the drive, jet wash underneath, we have a good look underneath.
If you've never used feeler gauges before, it's quite simple. Obviously you need to find the right feeler gauge. In this instance it's 0.025 of an inch. All you want to do is just slide it through the spark plug gap and you just want a light drag, just like you can see. Most of them actually look quite good, to be honest. That's the plugs put back in.
Right, so it's got a temporary fuel tank here. Anyway, let's kick it over.
As you can see, we're having a few small problems here. The car will start, sound pretty sweet, but then it won't carry on running. Now we have a few issues that I've noticed. One being the left-hand carburetor choke isn't pulled as much as the right-hand carb choke, if that makes sense. So both carbs aren't getting an equal amount of choke. The wiring around the coil also looks kind of suspect, and after doing some research I found that these cars can have problems with the ballast resistor. Apparently it'll sit halfway between the ignition switch and the coil itself, and if it's faulty it could cause similar conditions to what I'm experiencing. The best way to check for this is to check for 12 volts when the key's in the start position and 6 volts when the key's in the run position. That would mean that the ballast resistor and all the wiring to the coil is working correctly.
Right, I can't actually get it started at the minute. I think the carb's going to need actually flushing out. They'll probably be all jellied up, having sat full for several months. Anyway, we're going to actually just jack the car up where it is, jet wash this side, and have a good look under this side, and hopefully the other side should have similar damage so we know what parts to order for the car.
Jacking up a rotten car is never fun. Always try and jack up on any suspension components you can. If you can't, try using some wood to spread the load.
First impressions are actually pretty good under here. The shock appears to have been changed fairly recently. A lot of the CV sort of boots look very fresh. There's also brand new brake hoses here that look pretty new to me. And the rubber bushes do not look original at all. You know, they were original on my MGB and there wasn't much left of them at all. The actual arch itself also does look very solid, but when you start poking there is a few very soft spots. And you get to some areas and they do sound rather fiberglassy. But there is also some very solid areas, and then the whole actually rear chassis leg, so to speak, is very solid. So in some ways it's worse than I thought, and some ways it's a lot better. I'd also say I'm yet to find any evidence of welding. It does seem like a completely original car that's not had any body panels yet, any sills or anything. For reference, my MG, we found reference of having 2 other sills before we put the 3rd set on. Moving forward on the car, as expected, the outer sill is shot. The inner sill doesn't look as quite as bad as I thought, might be able to be repaired, but it is probably also shot. As we also knew in the previous video where the floor pan fell through, that is also shot. But we've also got the donut here where the rear suspension mounts. Yeah, the previous owner said it needed a repair around there, which would involve taking the top half of the rear shelf out and then getting in between it. I don't quite know how that will work yet. I'm sure we'll work it out, but yeah, I thought that was okay, but it definitely looks shot.
That there is the central cross member. On first looks it actually looks pretty good, but judging from the surface rust, as soon as you touch it with an angle grinder, the metal will be so thin that that will also need replacing.
And then coming back towards the front, again, I cannot find any evidence of any welding underneath. You know, even around here where it all mounts, it's very solid. It's a lot more solid than the back. Obviously, the brake calipers are going to need a rebuild. It's going to need new discs. The front here looks like it's going to need new shocks because they are weeping. The springs look past it on the front, they're probably going to need changing. And the brake hoses haven't been changed at the front, but there was a set of brake hoses inside, so they could be for the front of the car. But stuff like the track rod ends also looks quite good, to be honest. Again, it does look like some money has been spent on the car at some point in its life regarding suspension components and whatnot, even though we've got no service history with this car whatsoever. I think actually that is one area of welding there that has been done to the car. But yeah, that's all I've actually found looking on this side as a whole.
In the end, I decided to jet wash after filming underneath. I thought that would be wise so I didn't get any wet knees. If you look at the jet washing though, the areas that were actually soft with a hammer seem to just be where the underseals failed.
Yeah, it looks even better now I've actually jet washed it. Some of the areas where I actually thought it might be fiberglass, that was just where the sort of underseal had pulled away. The car looks very, very good in the arches and inner sort of underneath structure. It's mainly, as I say, the outer panels that are absolutely knackered. Yeah, a lot better than I thought. It's certainly a lot better starting point than the MG.
Sorry about the muddled up video here, but after jet washing I decided to play around with some of the wires around the coil just to see if it'd be a quick fix.
Looking at the coil electrics here, it's looking very similar to the 944 boot electrics. Got a lot of broken wires, snapped wires, and even a few dodgy block connectors. But first we're just going to put a new spade on here, or a couple of new spades on, and then we'll see if that helps us run a little bit better. With the ignition in the start position, we should have 6 volts, it's showing 4 volts. In the run position it's not showing any, but I don't know if that's because it's not really running properly at all, is it? So we'll get those swapped out and then we'll see if it makes a difference. Belt bouncing around there, see it there moving. Seems like this wire's been the issue here. Probably needs to change that. Also got a belt bouncing down there. The alternator belt. No smoke. Give it a little rev. Full one. On there. Right, that's just a short video for tonight. Anyway, apologies about that, but the whole purpose of tonight's video was to just have a good look underneath, make sure it's not too rotten and too far gone, which, from the underside it's actually a lot better than I thought. So now that I've actually given it a good checking over, I'm happy to go and buy all the other panels that I need, such as front wing repairs, sills, outer sills, inner sills, rear wings, passenger floor pan, and so on. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's short video. Thank you so much for watching as always, and we will see you next time.